Hello and welcome to Mindset Kitchen. My name is Diana Peliokaite and my guest is Beth Sherman. Beth is a speaker, comedian, Emmy-winning Hollywood comedy writer. Hello, Beth, and welcome to my kitchen.
Hi, Diana. It's my pleasure to be here. What an invitation. Come talk about yourself and I'll feed you.
Well, I'm glad you took it that way.
That is an offer I could not refuse.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. So, Beth, can you tell a little bit more what I've just said?
Sure. So I'm a comedy writer, which a lot of people here don't know what that is, but for my entire career, for 27 years, I wrote for TV shows in between New York and Los Angeles, mostly in Los Angeles. As you can hear from my accent, I'm not local. I'm not from the UK, but I wrote for shows that in the UK are called chat shows, but in the US they're called comedy variety shows. So I've written for Letterman, David Letterman, Jay Leno. I wrote for Ellen DeGeneres' show for 3 years. I write for a lot of award shows. So I've written for the Screen Actors Guild Awards a few times. I've written for the Oscars twice. So my weird
Wow.
superpower is being funny in someone else's voice. Also, for a lot of that time, for 15 years, I did stand-up comedy. And I love humor. I love everything associated with it. I love writing it. I love performing it. I love writing it for other people to perform. And for the past few years, what I've been doing, actually more than a few, 7 or 8, I have also, in addition to writing for the entertainment industry, I've written for people outside the entertainment industry, real people, and have helped them take make their presentations funnier and more engaging. How they can use humor or all the secrets or the beats of humor to engage better with their audience. And I do it for personal speeches like Father of the Bride speeches and Best Man speeches, but also for TED Talks and keynotes and things like that. And then over the past couple of years, I've gotten into keynoting myself on the subject of how to use humor as a tool for connection, how to quickly build rapport and trust. So that is my long-winded explanation.
Not at all. I'm sure you have hidden some sort of exciting details in behind the lines that for us to read, but that's who behind all of these, awards and like you say, the writer behind the scenes that we don't know, there she is. And Beth, I couldn't agree more. Humor is one of the best things in the world that people should really employ in everyday life.
Well, and it's very appropriate that we're at something, we're having lunch together. That because food and humor to me are, well, they're my two passions, and they're two things that they're just so nurturing. And I think both of them are a love language. And I use food as an analogy all the time when I talk about humor, because it's a way to make people comfortable. It's a way to put them at ease. It's a way to show them that you care about them. And if I have a message for people, the first one would be humor is a love language. I really believe that. I mean, if you think about it, even in literal terms, it's if someone that you care about isn't having a good day, you want to make them smile. When you're single and you want someone to find you attractive, um, you try to make them laugh. You want them to smile because it's connection and it's emotion. I, I mean, the best example, well, humor, it's a way to say things, as you said earlier, between the lines. It's a way to say things very often that you wouldn't say directly, or you couldn't say directly. So the best example of that I can think of is, well, I learned humor from my parents. I come from a culture, I'm American, I'm Jewish, I'm from the East Coast. We're funny. I mean, there's a cultural sense of humor. If you can't laugh, you'll cry, let's laugh. And my family and my parents were very much like that. And my dad was not able to share, well, he grew up, his mother was widowed with 3 kids in the Depression. And then he and his brother went into an orphanage because she couldn't afford to raise 3 kids. And then from that, he went into the Navy for World War II. And I think in hindsight, he might have been on the spectrum a little bit as well. So he did not come from an experience where he was comfortable sharing his emotions or saying, I love you. But he was so funny and he loved to make people laugh. And later in life, when the roles were reversed and I was taking care of my parents, he, well, he was kind of the glue that was holding that together. One morning he fell and he cracked his head, and we thought this might be it. And I was in the emergency room and I saw him, and he had been unresponsive in the ambulance. And I was standing with him thinking, what are we going to do? My mom's memory isn't very good. And I looked at him and his eyes opened and I could just tell he was there. And he looked at me and I went, get the nurse, get the nurse. So I got the nurse and she said, sir, can you tell me what your name is? Sir, can you tell me what your name is? And my dad looked at me and then he looked at the nurse and he said, Donald Trump. And I could see the nurse sort of go, oh, that's so sad. And all I knew.
You knew that he's actually joking, right?
I knew he was joking. I knew he was 100%. And I knew.
It's him.
That's him.
And he's sane, conscious.
and he's apologizing to me. That's how I took it, because he was taking care, I was taking care of him, but he was taking care of my mom. That this was sort of how we were keeping things together. And I knew he was annoyed with himself. He didn't have to be. He was 94. But he needed me to laugh. He couldn't say something. He couldn't hug me. He needed me to laugh. And it was love. It was a joke, but think of the cargo that joke was carrying. That's powerful.
That's absolutely beautiful, Beth. And I know it's beautiful because my whole arm is full of goosebumps. I always say that because I get goosebumps when something touches me. And you actually introduced your first message, humor is love language. And so many things were coming up to me, as you were saying. The things that when my husband was really ill, he never lost sense of humor. It's the admiration goes out to all these people who can still smile and make jokes so that other people are happy around them when they are suffering.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable love language.
It is, because think of the things that he wasn't able to do at that point. But what you can do for someone is to make them feel. It's a way of giving someone a hug. It is a way, I think, of telling them that you love them and showing them how much you care for them.
It's a connection, because essentially they're not saying that to make themselves laugh. The intention when someone does that is purely towards other people.
It's a cuddle and a kiss on the forehead. It really is. And when I talk, because now I spend a lot of time working with speakers and speaking about the power of humor to deal with clients and colleagues and customers, but especially with speakers, if you're on stage and you want people to listen to your message, you have to get them. I mean, as a comedian for 15 years, a comedian steps on stage, you have to get the audience like that. Because if you fail to connect with them, it's so bad. It's not called failing, it's called dying. It's called dying on stage. Well, yeah, it's funny. That can be funny too, not while you're experiencing it, but in hindsight, it's funny. And it's very funny for the other comedians in the back of the room who love nothing more. There's nothing funnier than watching one of your friends just eat it, just die on stage. But if you're a speaker, so if you can use humor, and by humor, I mean any sort of self-awareness, a story, an acknowledgement of something, if you can do that and bring your audience in, humor or laughter is an emotion. And it doesn't have to be knee-slapping, ha-ha laughter. Not every situation is appropriate for that. But if you can, a smile, a loud smile, that can be enough, because that's emotion. You've caused, it's visceral. It's a response. You can't help yourself from laughing. It's an involuntary response. So that's emotion. And emotion is what you need. It's a building block of trust. So now you might be seconds in. I mean, if you trip walking up onto stage and you smile and you say, well, that's not how I expected to, how I expected to do it, or nailed it.
Yeah.
And you have a smile on your face. Think of everything you're telling people. You're telling them, I can own my failure. I am not perfect. You've made them smile by what you've said. It's relatable. They're putting themselves in your position. You're seconds in. So now they're bought in. Now there's trust. And you need trust if you're going to create action. And the action could be as small as continuing to listen to you, or it could be you want them to buy your program, you want them to sign up for whatever it is. So humor is just key to any connection, I think. I mean, emotion is key. My area of expertise is humor. That's the emotion I like.
So Beth, I don't know if you can answer this question. And actually, I'm going to ask this question and I'm going to introduce the food, because I think I'm quite lucky, if I may say so. I have a sense of humor. And when I go to meet new people, that's one of the bits I bring with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I look for it. It's almost like I see the person and I say something and the person laughs. That's it. We nailed it. Yes. We are friends for life, or we like going for lunch later or for a drink later. It's almost within a second you manage to make a connection. And I think when people say, well, try to listen to people or ask them a question, those still like number 2, number 3, number 5. The humor is number 1 that breaks the biggest, thickest ice, I think. And I know you would agree. And I think I'm lucky, I'm equipped with a bit of that, but many people are not. And I just want to know, what do you do? If you think you're not funny, you may be funny actually, but lots of people I actually have naturally sense of humor because we love laughing. We love watching comedies. And when we watch comedies, we laugh. So when people say, no, I'm not really funny, well, why do you laugh then from other things? So I'll give you this little thinking part where I introduce the food, but how do we develop that? Or how do we nurture our sense of humor? How do we make it part of our lives?
Well, I get asked that all the time because people will say to me, I'm not funny. I mean, well, they tell me that they themselves are not funny. If they just came up to me and said, you're not funny, that would be awkward. But when I work one-to-one with people, they're afraid that they're not funny. And then I just start drawing them out and chatting with them. And 9 times out of 10, they will tell me things that make me laugh. But they think that when they are out in the world, that they have to be this other person, this serious person, this professional person. And to me, I think you can take your work seriously without taking yourself seriously. You can take the content and your message seriously without taking yourself seriously. And I think that's the difference. It's really, for those people, I guarantee you, those people, they watch things, they laugh, they make their friends and family laugh. It's not hard to make a kid laugh. So it's really just helping them have the awareness, that helping them bring that person on stage, bring that person into their professional life. Because the way that they're funny with those people is just, it's a little bit of, it's self-awareness, which isn't the same as, it's not the same as taking the piss out of yourself. It's self-awareness is simply being aware of how you're coming across to people or what people might be thinking. And it's just a little vulnerability. So they're not afraid to be a little bit vulnerable with their friends and family, but in a professional situation, they think that's a real liability. Mm-hmm. But it's counterintuitive, because really, if you are a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more human with the people in your professional life, it's more engaging. They're going to trust you more and buy into you more because you're showing them who you really are. So that's a lot of, I think that would be how people can get in touch with it. And also just it as an actual what to do, you always have your phone with you. Make a note on your phone. When you make someone laugh at home, your kid, your spouse, your partner, someone at the grocery store, someone on the bus, you look at something together and go, did we just see that together? Make a note on your phone, because then you'll start to realize, oh, I do make people laugh. Make a note of the things that make you laugh, which is usually the absurdity in life. I mean, if you watch the news, it'll make you cry, but before it makes you cry, you go, really? That's his defense? Really?
Yeah.
Um,
And Beth, you know what? As you were talking, I was thinking about something because let's say you now want to bring humor in your life. You know what?
Mhm.
Somebody watched you here and say, I would love to be a bit more funny. I am funny, but I'm scared to show because you just mentioned that actually humor is being more vulnerable,
Mhm.
is being open and actually allowing yourself laugh at yourself, laugh together with people, inviting them to laugh at you essentially.
With you.
With you. That's
With
a
you.
better way.
Yeah.
Yes, not at you, but
Yeah.
I even didn't take offense in that because laugh at you because you said it. You've been silly.
Yeah.
So people laughing
Sure.
at you in that way, but it's together, right?
Yeah.
And when you do that first time, people will obviously be like, "Oh, so he or she is funny." But you keep on doing 3, 4, 5 times, people will expect you to be actually the funny one, right? And the thing is, it's almost like finding the balance of being vulnerable, sharing your jokes, and when nobody's around you, just imagine a really serious board meeting, and there's one person who tries that. It's pretty brave.
Sure.
And then
Sure.
people will kind of accept it, and actually there's someone else will do the same, and it's infectious. So that was my point. Humor is infectious because once you open the door to it,
Yeah.
you invite so many people with you, and it connects the whole
It
lot.
is. It's a shared experience. Laughter is a shared experience. So
Yeah.
again, if you're stepping on stage or doing something like that, if you can make people laugh or just sort of, it's everyone agreeing on something for just a small amount of
Yes,
time. And how
agreeing.
often does that happen now?
Yeah.
How often does everyone agree? It's finding common ground very quickly. Oh, God, I had such a great thought and then it just disappeared.
go.
That's what happens. She's given me whiskey. It's not 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's about what 12:45. Cheers.
Welcome to Lithuanian home.
I like it. I'm here. I might not leave.
Perfect. Because we're going to laugh a lot then.
We get to laugh
More
a
than
lot.
laughing.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I know what I was going to say.
there you go.
May I? Yes. Well, here.
I can't wait to hear this now.
Well, when I talk about humor, I talk about it as it's seasoning. So look at me bringing everything full circle. But it's true. I wasn't joking when I said that I love
agree.
food as an analogy because it's a seasoning. And some foods benefit, if you think of it as salt, some foods, there's an expectation that it will be very salty. Movie theater popcorn. You want it to be really crisps, something like that.
Yeah.
You want it to be really salty. But chocolate, you put a few grains of sea salt on it and it is transformative. It's amazing. Yeah. You don't expect it, but it's great. But if you put too much on, it's inappropriate. It's out of balance. It's all relative. So if you're at that board meeting, you don't have to be Jerry Seinfeld. You don't have to go out there and be Mr. Yuck Yuck. I'm gonna, not that he is, but you don't have to be, hey, it's not appropriate.
Yeah, good analogy.
But if something ridiculous happens, or things get very tense, because humor is a great way to relieve tension. I mean, that's really its purpose. There's a setup and a punchline. The punchline relieves the tension of the setup. But it's a great way to relieve tension in an awkward situation. It's a diversion. It's lets a little bit of, it gives everyone a little bit of space. So a little bit goes a long way in a talk. A little bit, what my job when I'm helping people with their talks or their keynotes or their TED Talks, frequently the people that come to me are people that have very, very heavy subjects. Yeah. Very heavy subjects. I had someone who was invited to give his sister an award, to be the presenter of a very influential, important award to his sister. She was an advocate for people who had victims of political violence. He had been kidnapped and kept underground for a year. Oh. And he came to me because he said, I think I need some humor in my speech. And after I picked my jaw up off the floor, but we realized that obviously you can't, there was a significant piece of the speech that was not appropriate for humor. But he was a brother talking about his sister. They're siblings. What can we just sort of, what can we reference in the sibling relationship? That's universal. And so that he could say, she's courageous, she's this, she's that. I mean, she also blank. You know, what is the thing that between a brother and a sister, you know, but she used to beat me up or steal my dessert.
Yeah.
What can you do there that can relieve tension without obviously touching the things that are very, very, that aren't funny and shouldn't be?
Wow, absolutely fascinating, Beth. I'm just like forgetting that I have to cook
Sorry,
because I'm mesmerized by you now. So you mentioned the food, and I think I'm going to bring the food now at the perfect timing because I know you are a foodie, and I asked Beth what she would like to have today, and she said she wanted Lithuanian. Pretty brave, but she also is a fan of comfort food and warming soul kind of food. And I did think about it because there's nothing better than Lithuanian cuisine for it, because Lithuanian food is all about warm and quite heavy and but really comforting food that leaves you slightly bloated afterwards, but you still would do it all over again. So I decided to go for something that I don't normally cook. I don't cook it often, but when I cook it, it's absolute pleasure. It's called žemaičių blynai. It's pancakes. Blynai is pancakes.
Okay.
And žemaičių is actually the area in Lithuania. So, you know, you would have perhaps East London or like different parts of Lithuania. There's 4 parts. And so žemaičių blynai. I actually don't really know why it's called from that particular area. I assume maybe that's where they were made for the first time. But it involves potatoes, which are boiled first with the skin on. This morning I peeled the skin off. So I boiled this morning, peeled the skin off, and I just used
the ricer.
Yes, exactly, to get them into this position. And I'm literally going to start actually cooking before I read your second message. So I'm just going to start with few ingredients here. So we have here is flour, just to bind them so that it sticks together. It's a potato starch in here.
Oh, okay.
And then we have an egg. I'm going to put all of these in. Oh, we don't need the, is it the, no, it's not a shell.
I don't think it is, yeah.
And I'm going to put a bit of salt. So I had to do a little bit of preparation before this so that we don't take the shine away from the actual message.
No, I thank you for doing all this prep in advance, because also I know that's not, it ain't nothing.
So Beth, why is it that you wanted to try Lithuanian?
Well, I love food, and because again, food's a love language to me. I mean, think of everything that you learn when you share a meal with someone, or when someone shares a meal with you, or their food, or something special to them and to their background with you. I mean, that's great. And also, I'm just greedy and I like food, but
you're in the perfect place.
Well, also, Lithuanian food isn't something that has come into American culture or British culture in the sort of way where you go, what do you want to have tonight? Do you want Italian or sushi or Lithuanian?
Or Lithuanian.
Yeah.
It would be like on a list 50, top cuisines, would be like Lithuanian 49 somewhere.
But it's ignorance. I mean, it's not stupidity. It's ignorance where it's just the lack of knowledge. So when you said what kind of food, I said, I'm happy to eat anything, but how often am I going to get a chance to eat? To me, it's grandma food, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you're going to make something that's
grandma's made this.
Yeah. So, I mean, a restaurant's good if there's an older lady with swollen ankles in the kitchen.
Pretty much. I think all of these foods that now Lithuania is kind of losing because of all the international people coming over and cooking, all the Asian, Japanese, and we have curries now, and we never used to have that when we were growing up. But when you want really traditional Lithuanian food, you go to this really old establishment, and you can see all women, they're all women, and they all older women, and they just make the best food. Like, you can't even make that at home. I don't know what you do there, but it's the best. It's like how my mom and my grandmother used to cook.
You need 40 years of experience. You need to look in the kitchen and see a bunch of women in house slippers with swollen ankles.
It's almost like Italian like that, isn't it, as well? Grandmas.
Yes, in the best way. Well, there's a whole cuisine in Italy called Cucina della Nonna. Grandma cuisine.
Yeah.
It's the best thing. I mean, the food from my culture, because I grew up in it's Eastern European Ashkenazi Jewish culture in the northeast of in the east coast of Philadelphia in Philadelphia, but east coast of the U.S. But if I walk into a house, I mean, we would have a roast chicken, usually once a week, usually on Friday. And if I walk into a house and I smell a chicken roasting,
That's it.
I mean, I will well up. I mean, food is such, it's every sense that it just gets you.
I was thinking to get some food spray. You walk in,
Yeah.
it's already been cooking, so it just kind of entices you. And Beth, I offered you what would you like to drink, and it kind of made me laugh because Lithuanians, we don't have a food pairing. We're not French, we're not Italian. We drink vodka. People, not right now. People quite much drinking wines right now and everything else in Lithuania. But when I was growing up, there's no such thing as food pairing. But what we do is we drink everything. I think we drink anything that is on offer. And I like that you chose whiskey. It's one of my favorite little tipples that just warms up your cockles, as they say, right?
Yes.
Makes you warm and
my
cozy.
cockles are sweaty. Yeah.
And I think with Lithuanian food, I think you pretty much can drink anything. It's the company and everything else in the mixture that you have. And at the end of the day, it does not really matter what you're drinking or what you're eating. It's the people that here in your presence.
It's the people and the feeling. Well, I am honored to be here. So, you told me
Cheers.
the toast. Cheers. You told me the toast not 5 minutes ago, and it's left my brain.
Isveikata.
Isveikata.
It means to your health.
Isveikata. To your health, and l'chaim, which is to life.
No.
L'chaim.
L'chaim.
Yeah.
To life.
To life.
I've heard that somewhere. And you know what? One thing, Beth, sorry to interrupt you, is I don't really hear anything Jewish on TV. And it was my observation quite a few years ago. I'm drifting away now, but I would like to know more about the culture, language, the food, the cuisine, and I don't see that on TV, and I don't see that anywhere. So it's quite almost like a secretive.
Well, I think it depends where you're from. I mean, where I grew up with people who were very much like me. I grew up in a Jewish community, not a super religious community, but just culturally a very Jewish community. America is a nation of immigrants, and most of the people that I grew up with, usually their grandparents. By that stage, it was their grandparents that had immigrated from different places. Sorry, one more before I put it down.
Please. I like that you're enjoying.
It's a little, it was a very generous pour. So
it's welcoming.
Here's another thing I want to tell you about comedy.
3 hours later.
I'm going to teach you.
Oh, wait, I haven't thought about dessert.
Oh, yeah. I think in culture, you're supposed to have the heavy meal at the same time as the booze.
Oh, really? Yes, so that it soaks up. Sorry, I better start cooking.
But yeah, I grew up Jewish. My Ashkenazi Jewish, so the Jews who'd emigrated from usually Eastern Europe. There's a Sephardic tradition, which is more from the Middle East and Spain and Morocco. But it's interesting because you don't realize what your culture is until you are outside of it, or until you're with someone who is from a different culture.
Yeah.
And my wife is English.
Yeah.
And didn't know anyone Jewish until she moved to New York and met all of us. And I did wind her up quite a bit because we got invited to Passover dinner at a friend's house. And because she didn't know anything about Passover, which just happened here, and it's where you retell the story of the flight from the Jews were in the Old Testament. And forgive me, I went to Hebrew school, but I don't remember any of it. But the Jews were slaves in Egypt and then found their freedom, were led to freedom by Moses, and it's the Red Sea and all that. But she didn't, she was not familiar with the culture, so we were, at Passover, you retell those stories. We got invited, and so I spent the week before just lying to her about what was going to happen. Well, first you have the brisket, and then we bleed the non-Jewish people, and then we do this, and then we do that, and just told her all sorts of horrible things. And then we got to the dinner, and my friend's Uncle Kenny was walking around, and he'd made turkey, but he walked over to my wife with a big tray of turkey with white meat and dark meat and offered my wife in his very heavy Brooklyn accent, "You want dog meat? Dog meat?" And my wife said, "Dog meat?" No, not dog meat, dog meat. Dog meat? You want me to eat dog? Like woof woof dog? But because I'd been winding her up all week with
She probably
just
believed
insane
it.
things. No, it's dark. D-A-R-K, dark meat. Do you want a leg or a thigh? Or do you want breast meat? Yeah. But you sort of don't realize what you know about your culture or how strongly ingrained it is in you until you're outside of it, as if I have to tell you.
Exactly. And believe it or not, I have a bit of Jewish in
Yeah.
my blood as well. I did the test and it came back as Jewish. Or I think my grandparents probably were, having some Jewish blood as well. I'm a bit of a mixture of that whole East area and Baltics.
Well, because politically, I mean, we sort of got chased from place to place and the politics change and people get chased out. I mean, we know someone in common, Kay Korsh, and she's from Ukraine. And the day that I met her, we were talking about it, and it was incredible to me because my dad's family, his mother came to the US as a child from Kyiv. And I'd sort of forgotten because in my world, everyone who was American came from somewhere else, and everyone I knew, they came from the old country. And meeting Kay, who was Ukrainian, who came to the UK 15, 20 years ago, that would have been my family had they not left. I forgot. There were people who didn't or couldn't leave. And it's fascinating to me, that experience, because I'm so used to thinking of, oh, well, yeah, we're all immigrants. No, some people stayed.
Yeah, it is fascinating indeed. And Beth, I'm going to take you to the second message because I'm really excited because there's so much here. And this one is really short, but it says it all. Truth is funny. Why is it one of your messages, Beth?
Well,
why is probably very obvious now, but I want to know a bit more.
Sure, yeah. Well, and I'll let you cook because I keep seeing you go, oh yeah, okay.
No.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's just me multitasking. No.
Which impresses me.
It's all on time. It's all on time. Thank you for giving me the space, actually. Whilst you're going to talk about your second message, I'm just literally going to form a couple of pancakes for you, my dear. So,
I mean, it's meat and potatoes. I see dill, I see butter, and I see garlic. Is there anything better?
Yes.
Is there anything better than that?
Hopefully not.
Yeah, I don't think there is.
What I'm going to do is going to wet my hands a little bit, only because I don't want these potatoes to stick, and they not normally would be sticking, but I find that making a wet hand makes it better. And what you do, seriously, my mom and grandma would make these much better,
sure,
but I'm attempting at my own version. What you do, I love a lot of meat inside, and there's a little fine balance in there, because if I put too much, then the pancake will open and it will burst, and I still like it that way. So I'll stuff as much meat as I can. And by the way, this meat I cooked, I forgot to tell earlier, this is turkey mince.
Okay.
And because it has a little bit more fat than the chicken. In Lithuania, you would take actually perhaps pork or beef and mix it up, but you would boil the meat first and then you grind it through the mincer.
Okay.
It gives totally different element. It's almost like melting in your mouth.
Yeah.
So, but this recipe is a little bit fast, and I thought I'll make it, and I tested it, and it was absolutely delicious how it was as well. So I used turkey mince with onion, salt, and pepper. Simplicity is the key in everything I pretty much do. And this is perfect. This is even better than I practiced one.
You have my complete attention.
So for the next 30 seconds.
There's meat wrapped in potato.
You know what? And you can make them any size you want, but this is, I'm doing the traditional shape and size. They can be actually more flattened and so on, but I like them somewhere like that. And then they still have a little nice edge. I'm just going to, the pan is still warming up, so I'm just going to pop it here. And I'll pick it up. Hopefully it's not going to fall apart. And I'm going to do another one. So Beth, tell me, why truth is funny?
Focus.
You can look at what I'm doing and ask questions in the meantime. Please go on.
I have ADD. I cannot do both things at once.
You have been doing quite a lot of things at once. I promise you have.
Well, ADD, or I guess, I think mine's more ADD, not ADHD. I do actually have a diagnosis for it, but it's the thing that makes it hard for me to do some things, but it's also what makes me notice. It makes me good at comedy because I notice things that other people don't notice, mostly because I'm paying attention to whatever the important thing is, or whatever the thing that they're supposed to be paying attention to.
And so it makes you more advantageous and more special in a way that you actually can use your gifts.
If you can harness it.
And I love it.
If you can harness it, yes.
Exactly.
If I had to work at a bank, it would not be an asset, but in a comedy room or in front of an audience, it's an asset. So yeah, truth is funny. That is my second mindset message. And I think the bigger part of that message is truth is funny, and you have to laugh. It's what do you laugh at, and how do you find things funny? Because if you can laugh at a bad situation or a challenging situation,
hope you don't laugh today then.
Well, what?
That's my pancakes.
That is not a bad situation. That's a great situation.
So far, so good.
But if you can laugh at something that is challenging or frustrating or downright horrible, think about what you're doing. You're changing your mindset. You're reframing something that's a negative into a positive. You're taking control of it. So that is incredibly valuable. And if you're trying to find ways to connect with people, an audience, a colleague, a client, your team, I mean, it's particularly important in leadership. It's how do you, truth is funny. So if you've got a client who isn't particularly behaving or is being difficult, or if you've got a customer who's being difficult, not to the customer themselves, but when you're learning from that experience, use the specifics of that. I mean, I work with speakers who talk about customer service. Well, you can talk about customer service all day long, but if you can give us some examples, real examples of pain in the ass customers and their demands or their disappointments, then that is something that's going to be, that's going to connect with people. So if you can, when I talk about humor, people think, oh, it has to be a pun or a dad joke or a joke or, two of whatever ethnic group you want walk into a bar, or three of them sit in a rowboat. It doesn't. It can just be that truth is funny. I mentioned tripping as you get up on stage. You're acknowledging the truth of the situation. Reality is funny. Things are absurd. I was talking to, if you want a good example of it, and I do this in workshops sometimes, because people will say, well, I'm not funny. Again, they're saying about themselves, not about me. I hope. I hope they wouldn't say it to my face. But if you want a funny story out of someone, ask them, what's the dumbest injury you've ever done to yourself? I mean, for me, I ended up at the emergency room on a Sunday morning because I sliced my finger open while trying to open a frozen pizza with a steak knife at 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning.
Ooh.
I ended up with 3-4 stitches.
Pizza for 8 a.m. in the morning? Yeah.
See? Suddenly it becomes a story. Suddenly it becomes something.
Where were you, Beth, the night before? Or you just came back.
Exactly. There might have been some alcohol that needed some cheese and some carbohydrates. There might have been. I didn't have you making these for me.
You needed some assistance.
I did. But when I ask people that, and these people that are very, very serious and very businesslike, I get all kinds of answers. I mean, I posted something on LinkedIn because I closed my thumb in the refrigerator because
you're also clumsy, Beth.
I was reaching for the cream. I put cream. I have an espresso in the morning. I drizzle a tiny little bit of cream into it. It's amazing. You're welcome.
Oh, I've done that before.
Isn't it good? Isn't it good? So not quite delicious. A macchiato, just a tiny.
Yes.
but I thought I could sort of reach and do and not leave the fridge, and I was wrong. And so I got the whole black thumb.
That lasted forever.
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
And so I asked in the comments, what's the dumbest injury you've ever had? And I had hundreds of responses. So truth is funny. And so rather than trying to think of something that is, a dad joke, or this is a pun, or it's something that you're really trying to shoehorn in where it doesn't need to be, if you want humor that is really organic to what you're talking about and doesn't feel forced, because that's often why jokes don't work, because it feels forced and people go, yeah, that's funny. But if it's truthful, then you're sharing something about yourself. I mean, I got to ask you, what's the dumbest way you've injured yourself?
I must say, I thought about that answer already as you asked. I have never injured myself really, apart from just a little cut. So I'm a bit boring in that sector.
I saw you almost scald yourself with the hot oil when you were flipping the pancakes.
Oh, I did that many times. Yeah, but you know what I thought when I was doing that, as the hot oil splashed everywhere, I thought, oh, my little apron is really going to help me here.
Your mindset. Yeah.
It's like a crop apron. It's really going to, serve me well at the splash of the oil, because I think it went everywhere.
It's keeping about a 2-inch radius safe.
So fair to say, I would have burned and my clothes would be soaked in oil if just this was a little bit higher.
Well, they look amazing. I don't know if the camera is getting it, but those are golden brown, and come on, that is...
So actually the secret, Beth, to these pancakes is actually next day they even taste better. Everything next day, as you know, pretty much tastes better. But the secret
what time
to them,
should I come over?
you can warm them up. I'll make sure you go away with the pancake, maybe to your wife as well. And next morning, just warm it up in the microwave, in the pan, air fryer, whatever you want. You will see the difference in the taste. And I almost want you to text me and say, yes, it's so much better. Because if you want to serve guests immediately with this pancake, I'm going to make a sauce quickly as soon as they are done, and I'm going to put the pancakes in a plate and cover them with the lid, so you steam them almost. It's almost like allows this some sort of like penetration between the ingredients inside and outside work its magic. It's not supposed to be crunchy. It's supposed to be almost like melting in your mouth.
Okay.
And that's what it'll give you if you kind of warm them up the next day. That's the idea. Yes. But they're cooking nicely. I'm almost about to take them out. You can make them so much smaller. I love it. I love the size of them.
Why would you do that?
It's almost like American style, isn't it? American pancakes.
Yes.
But there's a secret inside. There's meat and they're savory. And I'm literally going to take them off very shortly off the pan. And I'm going to read your third message. I love it.
Good, because I've had so much whiskey, I can't remember it.
But it's so good that I have this green card with me that I carry with me. So the third message is, unless everyone is laughing, it's not funny.
Well, that's true.
There must be it's
very wise.
Some sort of interesting kind of story around it, because sometimes what we think is funny is not necessarily is funny, unless it's someone laughing. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, to me, in the context that I'm teaching humor, in the context that I'm showing people how to use it, I show how to use it as a means for connection, to bring people closer together. So, yeah, you can go up on stage at a comedy club and say whatever you want, and some people will like it and some people won't. But if you do it in a way that is, if you are skilled at doing it, you've got every right to do it. And some people will like it and some won't. But if you're using it in a business context, or you're using it as a tool for connection, to me, it's not funny unless everyone's laughing. So again, I'm making that distinction between just humor for the sake of the art, or humor, if it's at a workplace, if you are trying to use it to build connection with clients or colleagues or an audience. That's why you want everyone to be laughing. I would avoid controversial subjects. Not because I want to be the content police, but because if you're using it to connect with people, you want to connect with the broadest audience possible. And I write a lot of personal speeches, and I edit and help people with a lot of personal speeches. So it's a lot of best man speeches, father of the bride speeches, things like that. And you don't want to divide the audience, because if you bring up even a subject that's controversial, whatever side of it you're on, even if you try to go right down the middle, there are people, especially now, on both. Everything's very polarized. So if you bring something up, people will have a visceral response. And very often what happens now is people will confuse the subject of the joke with the target of the joke. And those are for two very different things.
Yes.
So you can make a joke about something controversial, maybe in a comedy club situation, about something controversial, but where the subject of the joke is well deserving of it.
Yes.
But if you're in a professional situation, unfortunately, it's just human nature. They will hear they'll hear the subject of the joke, and you're sort of shutting people off.
Yeah.
And so, one, it doesn't create connection. You're sort of putting some people to the side. And the other thing is, if you're giving a talk, or you've got a team, especially, well, in a talk, if you've got 200 people in your audience, or 300 or 500 people in the audience, you know what's better than 100 people laughing? 500 people is better.
Yeah.
So for your own self-interest, you don't want to divide the room. So you don't want to take on a subject. You don't want to take on a viewpoint. If you are using humor as a tool to connect, you don't want to take on anything that is potentially going to divide the room. And not because there's a right or a wrong to it, simply because what's your goal? Your goal is to bring people together. Your goal is to sell something to everybody in the room, not just part of them. If it's a best man speech or a father of the bride speech, your goal is to have everybody walk out happy. So to me, in those situations, when it's applied to comedy, unless everyone's laughing, it's not funny. It might be funny, but it's not funny kind of with a capital F.
I absolutely taking this on board today myself, because many times I would say certain things because I'm quite sarcastic, and that sarcasm obviously brings out certain elements in what I say that not everyone may understand me. So using the controversial topics, it's actually really good advice for people who are watching today. Is perhaps, if you want to actually be funny, don't pick up something so specific like, politics, race, religion, or perhaps the outfit of the person who's wearing it, or things like that would actually make you uncomfortable, or make the other person uncomfortable. So it's a really good advice, because then if you actually do make a joke, the joke needs to be almost like overarching of everyone, because there could be people in the audience or around the table or in your house party from different walks of life.
Yeah.
It needs to kind of like encompass everyone. It's a universal understanding, rather than specific in religion or race or how people are, their behaviors or attitudes or their experiences. Mm-hmm. It's more of overarching understanding. And I guess if you are first time fun maker or joker, it's a lot to take in, but obviously you have to take that awareness into mind to say, okay, I've got something funny, but there's actually this person here, and I think might be not appropriate, not understood correctly, because there's a funniness and there's a misunderstanding of the comedy. And I know I'm thinking, because I've seen quite a few comedians, and for example, comedians who are offensive very much, and I sat at a table with people who did not find it funny, and I burst out into tears thinking it's funny. And I guess they are almost allowed, because they're on that stage, so they almost have that certain permission to say it more.
They're a trained professional. If you're on a comedy club stage, to me, that's very different
than actually me and you in a normal conversation.
Well, you have to sort of look at what is the end result that you want.
And that goal, as you said, yeah.
And if I was a comedian for 15 years, I still do stand up a bit, but I was a comedian. I will support till the end a comedian's right to say whatever they want. Now, I will also say that, to me, well, what I've always said is nothing's offensive if it's funny, but it makes the bar higher. So if you're going to say something offensive, man, it better be funny.
So that everyone forgives you.
Oh, it better be funny. Yeah. So, but again, that's in a situation when people walk into a comedy club, there's a certain expectation. And there are people that are trying to be funny and fail. I mean, it has nothing to do with the subject. It just has to do with, no, you're just not real good at it. But again, what I talk about is primarily geared towards people in professional situations and how to use it as a tool for connection. So working backwards, if you're using it so that people feel connected to you and want to, and have an emotional response, and there's an action that you want them to take, you're kind of handicapping yourself if you split the room. And to continue using food analogies, because there's now cooked food that's just sitting here.
It needs to be, Beth. Be patient.
I'm smelling it. It's so good. But if I continue to use the food analogy, I would say, if you have people over, if you have a bunch of colleagues over for a business dinner, or you book a business dinner, you may like an omakase Japanese food experience where the chef chooses, and it's just, and I say this loving it, but it's fins and eyeballs and scales and just all sorts of interesting things, or whatever cuisine it would be. But you've got clients at that dinner. So do you want to take them to a dinner where it's not a sure thing? Do you want to take them to a dinner where some people might love it and others won't? If this, again, it's in a business context. But if you know that everyone likes Italian, do you go and you find a great Italian restaurant where on the menu there is a range of things, and the people that want something more exotic can get it, but it's all kind of within the same realm of experience and everyone can connect with it? It's really, that's the choice. It's not a matter of good or bad. It's just, if it's a business situation, you want to bring as many people in as possible. And it doesn't mean that omakase menu is bad. It just means that you may have a client who's sitting there going, yeah, I'm not eating that. Or I'll eat it, but I won't be happy about it. That's not the emotional response that you want to bring out.
You know what just came up to me, Beth? I'll take you with me when I'm going to something really serious. I'll be like, Beth, what do I say now? This guy's really funny, and this is what I'm thinking. You're like,
no. No. Well, sometimes it's a risk. Sometimes it's a matter of you being your authentic self, and that's your reaction. Yeah. I mean, the reason I mentioned Kay, who's a stylist that we both know, but we sat next to each other all day at a speaking association event. Didn't talk to each other, just happened to end up in the same spot. And then at some point, someone on stage, and there'd been a lot of talking. It was a little bit of an endurance sport. It was all good, but it was a little bit of an ultra marathon of information. And at some point, whoever was on stage said, I want everyone out there to think about what their goals are for the future. And I said, kind of without thinking, to the person who was sitting next to me, not because I had put any thought into it. I just turned to the person sitting next to me and I said, well, my goal for the future is I really got to pee. I'm going to have to pee soon. And she laughed, and that was it. And the same way you said earlier, if you say something to someone and they laugh, just done.
Just done.
Done.
And now you are very close and good friends.
Well, it opened up a conversation. Yeah. It opened up a conversation. And so when that speaker finished, and I raced out to the ladies' room, but then once I was able to focus again, but then we started chatting and we had a lot in common. But the most important thing that I knew, because it's something that's important to me, but the most important thing that I knew was she had a good sense of humor. And so I felt connected with her. I felt safe. I felt understood, all those sorts of things that are connection.
And that's a beautiful message and a way of saying you're actually being vulnerable and yourself. You're saying, I really need to go to the toilet really, quickly. And obviously other people were thinking, I want to, get 10 million in the future, whereas this was what you said,
Yeah.
and totally unexpected, and totally vulnerable and simple, and it joined you,
Yeah.
you know, and allowed you to have that open space.
And she
it's
laughed
beautiful.
because she could also identify with it too. It
Yeah.
wasn't out of.
Probably wanted as well,
Yes.
because it's just, you know, you sit there for a long time, you need to go toilet.
They give you free coffee
Yeah.
and tea and water,
Yeah.
and they talk to you for 2 hours, and it's, you know, it's trying.
Yeah, wonderful, Beth. I've literally enjoying so much chatting to you, and rest assured, I will continue chatting with Beth after this. But I'm just going to quickly say what I've been doing. So I put some butter and garlic in the pan and took it away immediately, because, you know, if you overcook garlic, it gets a bit bitter. In here, I have it's literally like it looks like a little concoction of something, but it's sour cream, which is one of the things that we use in everything, like everything in Lithuania. A bit of milk and flour, and I'm just going to make a quick sauce. I'm just going to pour it in here.
That's one of the best things I've ever looked at.
It's giving you so much joy. So I'm just going to quickly pop it back on the heat, because the reason I did that, it's, you know, the cream tends to curdle very quickly. If you put it into really high temperature, it goes and goes little chunks. You still
So
can
you're sort
eat
of
it.
warming it slowly, bringing it slowly up to
Exactly.
temperature so that it doesn't separate.
Exactly. If you pour anything, if you pour milk, cream, anything creamy into hot pan, it will curdle immediately. And so this is all it needed. My
Look at
sauce
that.
is actually done.
And thickening already.
Yeah, it's all it needed to be.
I'm going to sound like my mother and say, if you could bottle this smell, it's butter and garlic and sour cream.
Thank
and
you.
You're about to put dill in. I mean,
That's wonderful. People who are actually on the podcast are not able to see it. That's actually adding an extra, because once you can see it, you can maybe sense it a bit more. But when you're on a podcast and listening, this kitchen is full of garlic and butter.
and
It's
it's a good thing.
And the dill goes in.
Oh.
And the dill is pretty much, again, everything we use in our cuisine. It's one of my favorite herbs. I have it growing in the garden. Every single year I plant new dill. It basically kind of makes everything better. And I'm just excuse me, I just need to try for a bit of seasoning. Yeah, because you know why? I just realized I didn't put salt.
A little more salt. Can't go wrong with a little more salt.
So salt.
Seasoning. Everything needs a little seasoning.
A bit of humor in our life is needed. That's it. That's done. Beth, I'm going to serve you now.
Oh. Yes, please.
Žemaičių blynai. Please, I hope
Žemaičių blynai.
Žemaičių blynai.
Žemaičių blynai.
I hope you have a lot of space.
I get both of them?
Oh, yeah. Don't worry, I'll cook myself later. You know,
you can have one of them.
Don't worry, there's more.
Oh my gosh.
There's more to go around.
Is the camera getting both of those? I'm 5 feet tall. That's. I mean, I'm not complaining. That looks amazing.
That's it. If there's any more salt needed, please let me know. But that's žemaičių blynai with creamy white sauce. Beth, we spoke about so many beautiful things, and we spoke about how the truth is funny, how funny humor is actually a love language. And then you said, unless everyone is laughing, it's not funny. All these messages are so interlinked, and you have given us quite a few good tips, and those tips all come from your experience, from your heart. And I've taken quite a lot today, I must say. I've learned quite a few things today, and I put them in my little box of, you know, treasures to actually note when I do try to connect with people and use them. Give a go. Please give a little taste.
Give a little taste.
I hope everyone enjoyed this episode as much as I did, and as much as hopefully Beth did. And I hope you can actually take away some of these messages that we relate and use it in your life, because essentially humor connects us all, as Beth said, and humor is love. I'm actually seeing humor in pretty much everything, not necessarily using it, but seeing it as well. It makes your life, your heart, your soul so much lighter, and then you start looking at things more positively and with more light. And humor will literally join us all, keep us positive, keep our bellies laughing, and keep us living longer.
Like good food.
Like good food, exactly.
Like good food. This is so good.
This is good.
This is so good.
I'm so happy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you everyone for watching, and hopefully you enjoyed this episode because I did. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.